Hi, I'm Phil Curry. This presentation introduces the concept of market orientation and describes how my PhD helped me to understand the importance of adopting market orientation in agribusiness firms. From 2008 to 2012, I completed 2 master's degrees, searching for ways to better serve the needs of my client base, which were primarily agribusiness firms seeking to increase their profitability and sustainability. I had become somewhat frustrated at the way many of my clients were enacting the discipline of marketing, so I was specifically looking for methods for improving the way I could introduce new marketing concepts and ideas to them. Unfortunately, neither a Masters of Marketing or a Masters of Business Administration provided the insights I was looking for, and so in 2012 I started my PhD research. A PhD allows you to investigate any topic of interest, and the only real requirement for success is that it makes a contribution to academic literature. In my case, I was not all that interested in the academic literature, but I was desperate to understand how to better help my clients with the discipline of marketing and the way it was being implemented within their organisations. A PhD at UQ has to be completed in 3 years. The first year is a process of searching for prior research and other academic literature to identify the specific contribution that your PhD research will make, and to design a methodology for your research. During my year of searching through prior research, I came across the concept of market orientation. Very interestingly, I had not seen this term in either of my master's degrees. Whilst there are a range of conceptualizations of market orientation, the one that I think best describes the concept is the one that you can read on the screen. I'll explain it in a little more detail in a moment. I just mentioned that I had not come across the term market orientation in either of my master's degrees, but when I searched for myself, I was surprised to learn that it was in fact one of the most researched and written about areas of marketing. Market orientation can be explained as the component of organisational culture that enables an organisation to create and retain profitable market positions over the long term. It consists of just 3 components. The first is gathering market intelligence. The second is sharing it within the firm, or perhaps even with actors in agricultural value chains. Of course, this does not mean every individual person in the organisational chain, but it certainly does mean that key personnel from every department should be involved. The third and final action is the timely and coordinated responses to the opportunities and threats that are evident from the market intelligence, without which an organisational value chain can lose customer loyalty, sales and market share. I have personally been employed in organisations where the marketing department did not share market intelligence and can recall firsthand the negative consequences that resulted from this behaviour. Remember the graph that I showed a moment ago that highlighted the significant number of research papers that had been published from the early 1990s until 2013? Well, many of them describe the benefits that are reported to be obtained by firms that practice market-oriented behaviours. These include performance measures such as income, market share and profit, and very interestingly, even that the morale and commitment of employees is enhanced because they understand the rationale behind decisions and are even involved in planning and implementing them. Furthermore, the research suggests that these results are available even through turbulent times, which of course is exactly what we are experiencing at the moment. The prior research also indicated that market orientation is a continuum, and that the more it is practiced, the greater will be the benefit. So organisations and even value chain partners can start at a low level and gradually develop the mechanisms that are market orientation as they gain experience and confidence in the value of implementing them. I mentioned earlier that market orientation is part of organisational culture. When I read that, I realised that I needed to learn about organisational culture. Whilst there are literally reams of literature on the topic, I discovered that the best simple definition of organisational culture for me was the way we do things around here. More importantly, I learnt that organisational culture is formed and evident at 3 levels. The triangle represents organisational culture and illustrates that artefacts, being the things that we can see in an organisation, such as the behaviour of employees, what they are wearing and how tidy the place is probably the most visible representation, but really does not represent the true organisational culture. At a slightly deeper level are the espoused values, which might be things like the company's mission statement, the rules and regulations that are documented to guide employee behaviour, and which sometimes are there more for show than anything else. Finally, literature suggests that the most powerful and significant influence on organisational culture comes from the underlying beliefs of the founder or most senior managers of an organisation. These can in fact have the most impact on the way we do things around here, but are rarely openly discussed or talked about. When I read this, I realised that perhaps there were some underlying beliefs in my client organisations associated with marketing and market orientation that I needed to understand before I could make a real contribution to the way they implemented their marketing. Having learned that beliefs play an important role in organisational culture and that market orientation is part of organisational culture, I realised that I needed to understand more about how beliefs influence and inform behaviour. I did some research and found that I could really relate to the theory of planned behaviour, which describes 3 different types of beliefs and the way they influence intention and consequently behaviour. Behavioural beliefs are simply what you believe the consequence will be of an action. If you believe that advertising will provide an efficient increase in sales, then you will probably authorise an expenditure on advertising. If others tell you that it will, but deep down you don't believe it, then you probably won't authorise that expenditure, even though you may not even explain why. It's as simple as that. Normative beliefs represent your interpretation of how others will perceive you if you make certain decisions. Let us consider that same expenditure on advertising. If I am in an organisation where the culture is that advertising is a waste of money, but I believe it does produce an efficient response in sales and profit, I may be reluctant to recommend the expenditure because of my concern about how it might influence how I am perceived within that organisation. Finally, control beliefs are our own internal assessment of the extent to which we believe decisions that we make will be able to be implemented within our organisation. Again, if we consider the expenditure on advertising, if I do not believe it will get approved by a higher level of management, then I won't bother to even make the attempt to make the decision. As you can see, an understanding of the complexities of beliefs and how they influence intention to act and ultimately behaviour is actually really important, especially when we understand that it is those very beliefs that have the most influence over organisational culture, which at the end of the day is simply the way we do things around here. So in other words, if we want to change the way we do things around here, for example, the way we adopt contemporary marketing practices, then perhaps the key lies in understanding and changing the deeply held and often not discussed beliefs of an organisation's founder, owner, and most senior management team members. This diagram simply illustrates the focus of my research, which, as you can see in the white triangle, was to understand the beliefs that influenced the organisational culture component of market orientation. To understand these beliefs, I conducted interviews with a group of owners and managers of agribusiness value-adding enterprises in Queensland and New South Wales, and used those interviews to develop a list of deeply held beliefs that were very likely influencing the implementation of contemporary marketing practices within those firms. If you are interested to know the detail of what I learned, please let me know and I'll share it with you. At the end of the day, however, the most significant learning from my research was that the discipline of marketing within agribusiness firms that I studied was not well understood. I personally believe that this is an industry-wide issue. It represents an industry-wide opportunity for improvement and to create a source of competitive advantage for individual organisations and value chains that are willing to reconsider their understanding of the discipline of marketing and to adopt more contemporary approaches. None of the case study organisations demonstrated market orientation to its full extent. Broadly speaking, They failed to gather market intelligence because of a lack of knowledge about how to collect it or an appreciation of the true value of market intelligence. They didn't really share market information, possibly due to a lack of confidence or trust in others, or because they simply did not have it to share. And of course, they were not achieving timely and coordinated responses to opportunities and threats because one or both of the first two actions were missing or deficient. The beliefs identified may not be the most important outcome. Perhaps more importantly, each person held different beliefs. They have to be dealt with individually. And until deeply held beliefs are changed, there is unlikely to be a change of market-oriented behaviour within an organisation. In other words, nothing can happen until beliefs of the senior management team members about market orientation are identified and altered. So my research led me to the conclusion that before the degree to which an organisation can be expected to significantly change the way it adopts contemporary approaches to marketing, the organisational culture that influences degree of market orientation must be changed. This means that a culture change process may be required before, or at least in conjunction with, marketing planning. The culture change process must address the beliefs of owners and senior management with respect to marketing and market orientation. My career as a consultant, followed by my PhD research and now as an academic, has allowed me to develop my own definition of marketing. You can read it here for yourself. As you read it, you'll see that it revolves around a two-way communication between the organisation and the market that it does and that it hopes to serve. It acknowledges the competitive environment in which an organisation operates. And most importantly, it understands that delivering products and services and experiences that delight customers and attract non-customers at the end of the day is what pays the bills and contributes to long-term sustainability. Thank you for taking the time to watch this presentation. I'm very keen to be involved with organisations that are interested in reviewing their organisational culture with the objective of understanding and changing the barriers that may be preventing the adoption of more contemporary practices of marketing management. If you would like to discuss this with me, my contact details are here for you.